you first look at the DKW Schnellaster, it's easy to underestimate it. It doesn't look powerful, it doesn't look fast, and it definitely doesn't look like something that would influence the future of commercial vehicles. It's small, rounded, almost modest, to the point where you might think it was designed specifically to avoid attention. But that's exactly what makes it interesting, because behind that quiet appearance is one of the smartest and most forward-thinking designs of its time. Introduced in 1949, right in the middle of post-war reconstruction, the Schnellaster was built for a world that needed practical solutions more than anything else. Businesses needed transport, cities needed supply chains, and people needed vehicles that could work every single day without drama. DKW approached this challenge with a very clear idea. Instead of building something complicated, build something efficient, simple, and maximally useful in real life. The result was a vehicle with a layout that was far ahead of its time. The engine was mounted at the front in a compact configuration, allowing the driver's position to be pushed forward. The front wheels were placed unusually close to the front edge of the vehicle, which meant almost the entire body length could be used for cargo. Today, we call this a cab-forward design, and it's everywhere, but back then, it was still a relatively fresh idea. This approach allowed the Schnellaster to offer far more usable space than you would expect from something so compact, making it incredibly practical for everyday work. And DKW didn't just stop at one version. The Schnellaster was produced in 4 main body types, each designed for a specific purpose, which made the platform even more versatile. There was the classic panel van, a fully enclosed version designed for transporting goods safely and efficiently, protected from weather and theft. There was also a pickup-style flatbed version, which offered an open cargo area and was perfect for transporting bulky or irregular loads that simply wouldn't fit inside a closed body. Then there was the bus or passenger version, which could carry people instead of cargo, making it useful for shuttle services, small group transport, or even early forms of public transport in certain areas. And finally, there was the chassis cab version, essentially a bare platform that could be customized with specialized bodies, whether for medical use, service vehicles, or other specific applications. This flexibility turned the Schnellaster into more than just a van. It became a tool that could adapt to almost any job. Under the hood, the engineering philosophy remained just as practical. Early versions were powered by a small inline 2-cylinder 2-stroke engine with a displacement of about 43 cubic inches, producing around 20 horsepower. Later models improved on this with a 3-cylinder 2-stroke engine of about 55 cubic inches, delivering roughly 32 horsepower. By modern standards, those numbers sound almost unrealistically low, but for a lightweight commercial vehicle in the late 1940s and early 1950s, it was enough to keep things moving. 2-stroke engines were chosen for their simplicity and ease of maintenance. They were lighter, had fewer moving parts, and could be repaired more easily in less than ideal conditions. Of course, they also had their quirks. They required mixing oil with fuel, produced a noticeable amount of smoke, and had a very distinctive sound, not loud in a powerful way, but more like a persistent mechanical buzz that made it clear the engine was always working hard. You didn't just drive a Schnellaster, you heard it, smelled it, and experienced it in a very direct way. Power was delivered to the front wheels, which was a bold choice for a commercial vehicle at the time. Front-wheel drive improved traction, especially when the vehicle wasn't fully loaded, and allowed for a completely flat cargo floor. The loading height was only about 16 inches, which made a huge difference in everyday use. It might not sound impressive, but anyone who has ever lifted heavy cargo into a high truck bed would immediately understand how valuable that feature is. The transmission started as a 3-speed manual and was later upgraded to a 4-speed, giving drivers a bit more flexibility. It wasn't complicated, but it didn't need to be. Everything about this vehicle was designed to work, not to impress. When it came to steering and handling, the Schnellaster had a very honest and mechanical feel. It used a rack and pinion steering system, which was quite advanced for its time and provided relatively precise control. Because the engine and drivetrain were positioned over the front axle, the front end carried more weight, which improved traction, but also gave the steering a slightly heavier, more connected feel. It wasn't difficult to drive, but it reminded you that you were operating a machine. You could feel the road, the load, and the movement of the vehicle in a way that modern vehicles often filter out. It wasn't refined, but it was predictable, and that's what mattered. The suspension system combined independent front suspension with a durable rear setup designed to handle cargo loads. It wasn't built for comfort, but it was stable and reliable, which was exactly what users needed. Top speed ranged between roughly 37 and 50 miles per hour, depending on the engine version. That might sound slow, but speed wasn't the goal here. This was a working vehicle designed to deliver goods, not adrenaline. It would get the job done, even if it took a little longer. Now here's something that many people don't expect. There was also an electric version of the Schnellaster. Yes, an electric van in the early 1950s. This variant used an electric motor producing around 6.4 horsepower and was powered by a battery system that allowed for a range of approximately 50 to 60 miles under ideal conditions. It was mainly used in urban environments where short distances and low speeds made electric operation practical. Of course, by modern standards, those numbers are modest at best, but the fact that such a version existed at all is incredibly impressive. It shows that even back then, engineers were already thinking about alternative propulsion methods and urban mobility solutions. It's one of those details that makes you stop for a moment and realize just how forward-thinking this vehicle really was. The Schnellaster wasn't just produced in Germany. It was also built under license in countries like Spain and Argentina, where it became extremely popular. Its reputation for practicality and reliability made it a common sight in cities and rural areas alike, and in some places, the name DKW became almost a generic term for small delivery vans. That kind of impact doesn't happen by accident. When you look at the DKW Schnellaster today, it becomes clear that this wasn't just another post-war vehicle. It was a carefully thought-out solution to real-world problems. It introduced ideas that would later become industry standards, and it did so in a way that felt natural and logical. It didn't try to be revolutionary, but it ended up being exactly that. Because sometimes the most important innovations aren't loud or dramatic. Sometimes they come in the form of a small, slightly noisy van that just quietly does everything right. If you enjoy rare, unusual, and ahead-of-their-time vehicles like this one, make sure to subscribe. There's a lot more coming, and some of them might surprise you even more than this one.